I am so excited to be here with today's special guest. I've been very much looking forward to meeting them. Costume designer for Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma. Please welcome Kendra Terpenning. Hey Kendra, so good to finally meet you.
And you, thank you so much for having me. We kind of famously connected via Instagram DMs like a year and a bit ago, so this is so nice to actually connect face to face.
Yeah, I was so excited. As soon as I heard about this film and saw what it was all about, I was like, oh, this is part of my DNA. I have to be a part of this film with you. So I've been very much looking forward to it. Just watched it this morning, so you're catching me right off of watching this film. I can't suggest it more. It is now in theaters for those of you near a theater, I should say. So get to your local theaters and see it on a big screen like it's meant to be seen, because it is quite the magical journey. But before we dive into the horrors of Camp Miasma, Kendra, I have to ask, Hannah Einbinder's character, Kris, loves candy and snacks in this film, very much so. And it honestly made me feel a little bit hungry. So when you are sitting down at the theaters to watch this film, what candy or snack would you want to bring?
Oh, thank you for asking. I'm actually, I can deeply connected with those scenes, as I like to be like surrounded by a perfect balance of salty sweets. So I'm popcorn, layered butter. I am glossettes for sure, maybe an M&M peanuts, and depending on my mood, and then some kind of soda, and also cycle through, or pop, depending on if you're Canadian or American. And I'll cycle through just the way it feels right, but I'm a snacker at the movies for sure.
Yeah, I get it.
But I'm anti this whole layer butter. Oh yeah, you gotta pay extra. I'm not into this whole full meal deal. I don't know if this is true in the States and Canada. We're seeing like pizzas, nachos, hot dogs. Get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, I've been seeing a lot more lately. I will venture into like a mozzarella stick, but that's as far as I go. Because they're tiny and small, but full on pizzas is a bit over the top for me. What was the second one? He said glacieres.
Glossettes, like
glossettes.
Glossette raisins, like a chocolate covered. And I think she puts them in the scene where she's watching Miasma 6 on the DVD player in the hotel. She shakes them in. So yeah, that kind of like glossette raisins.
Yeah, I think that's when I finally was like, ooh, I'm hungry, when she started getting into that. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. So let's head off to Camp Miasma. First, I'd love to hear a little bit about your conversations, Kendra, with director Jane Schoenbrun, and your first reactions to the script, because I can imagine seeing it on a page was a bit of a magical journey going to all sorts of fun places. I
mean, I think what everyone is seeing is really what you got. This is incredibly true to Jane's script, to Jane's vision. I think it just came screaming off the page, pun intended. It's like a very powerful first read. I think I kind of just closed my laptop and was like, well, that's a yes for me. I'll tell you, yes, I would love to talk to Jane. Yeah, and I'd really recently I saw the TV Glow. I was very familiar with it and was absolutely blown away. Just such a captivating voice and creative force. And, I think Jane is really articulate and really authentically themselves. So, they've spoken really, really powerfully in the beginning of this press tour and throughout about this film. And, I think anything I would say is probably going to echo that, which is it's about sex, love, the intersection of those experiences, disassociation, slasher films, flesh and fluids, as we do say in the film. It's a really, really, really fun, I think, cozy film. I use that word a lot. I found this deeply comforting. And I think the earliest conversations were just about Jane's passion for the concept of a slasher franchise, not just one. The lineage of the franchise in the film is really important. And their experiences, both personal and sort of, not everything that Kris is saying is Jane's personal experience, but I fear some of it may be. And so, I think we just really, connected about the style of filmmaking that this was going to emulate, using lots of practicals with every department you see, including kind of quite famously now the production design has these just beautiful old school matte paintings and stuff like that. The fact that we will be shooting on film, which was my first film shot on film, so it's kind of an honor to be a part of this one. That was done so beautifully by Eric Yu. So I think we just really got into it and started clicking on sort of the language that they're going to use and just the film knowledge, because while the slasher and horror elements are very foregrounded, Jane also really clearly saw this as a romance, and I also really connected to that and wanted to have this conversation about like the sapphic elements, the female gaze, and just what that meant and what that would kind of what flavor that would bring to the whole thing. Again, candy, pun intended. But yeah, nice. So I think it was just a really expansive conversation covering it. But I can't understate how just that's it. Like what you see, like it's such an extraordinary experience. You put a movie together, and sometimes there's big fundamental changes that are exciting things that come out of the edit, and sometimes it's very truthfully the director's vision. And this would be that experience for me. I think. The only thing that surprised me the first time I saw it was, and I don't know why, this is ridiculous, it's so funny. And it's all there, but just to see it like live and breathe through Hannah and Gillian, it's a riot of an experience to go see. I'm so glad everyone's enjoying it so much.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely an underlying comedic tone to it, but I mean, overall, there's obviously such a clear synchronicity between you, Jane, Hannah, Gillian, all the other departments. It just felt really, really, it came together in such a moving way, which I was not expecting, honestly. I went into it ready for lots of blood and a slasher film, which it very much is at times. But, there's a very moving, intimate journey there for everyone. So I'm excited to see it for a second time, honestly, because I feel like I'm definitely going to go into it with a whole different lens that second time and see things I didn't see the first time. So with that, congratulations to you, Jane, and everyone who is a part of this film, because it really was quite moving and beautiful. But let's dive into to our two characters here. We'll start with Kris. Hannah Einbinder plays Kris, a director getting ready to revive the 80s Camp Miasma series, much like a lot of films are doing today. So when we meet her, she feels a bit guarded to me. And I realize it's cold out, but she feels like she has these walls up at the beginning, which kind of, I feel like, come down toward the end. But even her mittens are a struggle trying to get those on and off, which I thought was a very interesting costume point. So I was interested to hear a little bit more about the storytelling you were trying to convey with Kris at the beginning of this film.
Yeah, that's all really accurate. Actually, the mitten bit is in the script. We had to really run through a trial and error of truly finding mittens so big that gesture was almost impossible to get them on.
That was real. We were all struggling.
Oh yeah, we've all been there. For those of us who get to live in a winter. So we began from a place that is very like, where does Kris come from? How has Kris thought about their own identity throughout their life? Does that translate into somebody who thinks about what they wear every day, which, like, is roughly no, really, is kind of where we came into it. It's a tricky thing to kind of uncostume and make it look intentional. So it was more like if, Kris lives in Brooklyn with her girlfriend and their respective, like, poly-partnered. And, a lot of what we did is a mix of, like, is this something Kris has had since high school? Is this something Kris kind of saw walking past and was like, oh, that's nice, and, like, grabbed it? Or, like, how much would Mari actually have had an element of it, which is, like, the necklace that Kris wears. We wanted to have, like, one thing that was kind of, like, interesting, cool, was very central to Kris, that we wanted to stand out. And I think for Hannah that she felt that Mari probably would have given her that. So it was a lot of very grounded in realism, of which that term is very loosely used throughout this film. where did it come from? Kind of where would she have gathered these pieces? So lots of like a mix of very simple, okay, she ran out of jeans, she needs jeans, she ran into the mall, versus like some really, we worked really hard at like thrifting and finding like interesting character-driven vintage pieces. And then we do have the opening outfit that she meets Billy in, which is actually her second or third costume in the whole film. That one was one where Hannah really wanted to do a reference to the film Secretary. And so this is a version of if Kris has to get dressed up in life, what does that look like? And this is probably the most dressed up she's gotten in a long time because she's finally meeting this icon from her life. So her own anticipation of who Billy is going to be, which is very unexpected, I think, from a costuming place. This is her putting together her most formal outfit, which is like a vintage skirt and like Doc Marten Mary Janes and a sweater. And so we really began fundamentally from like, who is Kris? The glasses were a big discovery. That was really important for Hannah. She really wanted to have glasses on. That's an interdepartmental thing. So like she kind of tells me about it. I go out and kind of find references of the style that we're looking for. And then it's actually our props team, led by props master Slade, who goes and actually sources them. And then they come into the costume fitting to play with. So that was really, I think, a really big surprise for Hannah, because I guess she didn't realize that you could actually see glasses all the time. You can see them. And it really changes your perception of the world and your gestures as they move and sit on your face. So I think she really connected to those quickly. Finding the right shoes, that's true for a lot of actors. And then kind of developing clothes that do quietly connect thematically to the journey towards Camp Miasma. I think it's pretty subtle, but it's kind of there as we sort of had a bit of like steps towards her joining the camp and kind of getting to realize this experience or fantasy, or however you like to interpret what happens in the film. So I think we started in a very, very grounded place of like, who is Kris? Why would she have these clothes? And then kind of moved along through there. And just really fun, playful developments throughout the fittings with Hannah. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it felt like to me it was like a kind of like a blank slate where you were able to kind of see yourself in Kris also to kind of go on this journey with as you get into Camp Miasma too, because she's kind of confused going into this whole situation. So you're kind of, as the audience, you get to kind of see yourself as Kris and find out what's going on here at the same time and go through these own feelings and your own journey. But that leads us to meet Billy, played by the incredible Gillian Anderson. And, leading up to it, you're kind of hearing about, she lives out in the middle of nowhere. I think the word like recluse is used, even though it's not exactly true. And then you meet Billy, who's this incredible Hollywood glamour, Sunset Boulevard-esque, incredible actress. I mean, as we all know Gillian Anderson to be. So, she's incredible. And you fall in love with her, and the costumes are just out of this world, brilliant. So I would just love to talk to you a little bit about the references and the inspirations you were going for as we created this Billy character, because I really loved just how referential it was and how beautiful and old Hollywood it felt. So what was your idea behind the initial meeting of Billy?
It is both scripted, but not... I think Billy's probably one of the biggest surprises in terms of the decisions we made versus the script, and kind of not moving away because it wasn't described. It was the facts that she lived with, the dialogue that reference, Norma Desmond and Sunset Boulevard and everything. That's all there. But I had ideas, and they were kind of in a bit of a almost collage. Like Jane liked some of them. There were some ideas that were more like, is she Norma Desmond? Or is this a rejection? And if you went from a practical standpoint in a sleepaway camp, you even know that the power goes out routinely. Like, this is probably a very physical, utilitarian wardrobe that would make sense. It's
Yeah.
big hiking boot energy, but that's not what she looks like at all.
No, not at
Um,
all.
uh,
Like she's
it,
out there in like a full-on gown trying to fix a generator or something.
100%. Yeah, it's silks, velvets, furs, stilettos, um, big hats, literal turbans. It's a really fascinating combination of ideas. And it was Gillian who started this with I have a vision. She'd recently seen an exhibition by the fashion designer Biba in
Mm.
London and was really, really, really taken by how romantic those garments are. And I think that was such an emotional connection for her in terms of following that theme as opposed to I don't know, vintage Carhartts and hiking boots from the 80s or something like that. So it's an interesting mix of her having been trapped in a time capsule, but also, some folks are very influenced by the era in which they sort of came to their adulthood. And so that experience in the first Miasma film, when she was 24 in Billy's life, as she eventually tells us, I think we kind of went from that. But it's one of those things where when we kind of pulled together this, maybe that doesn't actually make perfect sense in terms of it being grounded, but then again, Jane has this amazing ability to blend these very different elements into something really, really new that are referential, but their own interpretation of them. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really what's happening here. You can see it in many different elements throughout the film, and there are references hidden that I would say nobody's noticed or asked me about yet, and they're just there because it felt right. I think they're there for Jane. I think they're there for the actors. I think Jane makes movies for the people that they love, and I think are very delighted as many people enjoy them. And I think that is at play here. So, yeah, Billy came from a place of like emotional connection and creativity for Gillian herself, and then running with that for me as I kind of got this seed of the idea, I just started gathering a broad expanse of ideas and references, and then kind of charting out. There are also more costume changes than just story days, which was also something where she's like, well, this is an event within this life, so I'm going to get dressed special for it. And then this is
Mm.
the significant final moment is also a major event, and I'm going to dress for it. So yeah, we just started gathering both of the era in which the original Miasma is set, and then also playing with very old Hollywood glamour. We went back in time to um, the 30s to 40s in the Sunset Boulevard references and everything. So uh, we just sort of cast a really wide net, and again, we gathered these beautiful, beautiful garments, most of which are from their original era, and played. I think this was a really playful film, and I think that comes across, and that was really true in fittings. It was not, with the exception of Little Death, it wasn't the type of show where I came with this is what it's going to look like and we're making this for you. It was much more fluid and what feels right, what are we connecting to. And there was, Gillian walked into the fitting and just walked up to the purple dress that you meet her in and was like, yep, let's start here. And it's a wonderful
Wow.
feeling as a designer to see an actor resonate with what you have gathered and the ideas that you've brought together, because I think for me, I consider myself someone who exists in the service of telling the story the director envisions and supporting the actor's connection to that journey. So I was really thrilled to see them, both Hannah and Gillian, really have a very strong connection to some costumes and the fittings.
Yeah, and I know the audience is going to as well. I just love the whole surreal kind of feel, dreamlike world that these two characters are living in. And honestly, if I were living in the middle of nowhere too, I feel like I'd be wearing whatever I want to because they're your rules, right?
Yeah.
Um, so not only did you have this more contemporary aspect of the film to costume, But you also had to design a movie within a movie, which I don't
Yeah.
think people understand how difficult that can be. Going from our contemporary times all the way back to 80s Camp Miasma, which, I mean, there's 80s summer camps is almost like its own genre, honestly, with the slasher aspect to
Tell me
it.
about it. I'm in an unbelievable coincidence. I'm actually in prep on a film that partially takes place at a summer camp in 1984.
Oh wow. Okay,
Um,
well, that's probably nice, honestly.
it's a very different genre, and we're approaching it delightfully differently. But in the interview, they were like, "So have you ever done anything in this era or in a camp setting?" And I was like,
Yeah. Well, see
"Yes,
Teenage Sex and Death
yeah, it's
coming out this
August
fall.
7th, yeah."
So with that, I mean, how did you and your team come to balance this period world with your contemporary? I mean, did you go into it with a whole new mindset, new boards, I mean, how that seems like a awfully fun challenge.
Yes, I mean it really was. And so the it was extremely fun. The hardest part about something like this in this genre is that unlike Gillian's costumes, I cannot dip into like the. I guess I assume people know this, but sometimes costumers get garments from rental houses specifically made for us, and they are film rental houses that carry stock from any and every era throughout all of history, and all over the world, and they exist all over the world, and we source for them often all over the world, and their pieces are more often than not one of a kind, and you absolutely cannot hurt them, which means that you really can't slash open someone's belly with a spear. Not to be too specific. So to create the era authentically with garments that are either modified contemporary, which is one strategy. You take something that you can get in mass and you recut it or reshape it or alter the color or add to it to make it look more era correct, or you build things from scratch. We used all of the strategies. If there was anybody around who didn't, their costume didn't die on camera, we did try to use as much era correct clothing as humanly possible. However, for my miasma kids, they go through it, and so that's the challenge, is making it look and feel the way that miasma needs to feel, while also having access to up to 10 of any given garment.
Yeah, I was trying to think. I'm like, I don't know that anyone did make it out, but
Well,
not many.
they didn't, but it's things like young Billy's clothing. It's actually a mix of stuff from the very, very late stuff, like 78, 79 to 83. And a couple of contemporary pieces that just felt good, fit good. I do wherever possible like to go new with shoes when people are running, because old shoes can age, and I don't want anyone to have an accident, especially out in the woods. So Billy doesn't have her clothes on when she dies. Therefore, those clothes could be, from that era, as opposed to our poor DJ Ella, bless her sweetheart, who that needed to be able to be destroyed, which is both cut into and soaked in blood. So it's a really broad amount of strategies that can gather that kind of thing. And it is a perfect intersection of really fun and really stressful to do. So how did we get there? I can't even tell you how fully formed this was in Jane's mind. They had created an extraordinary prep document to reference things both literal that they wanted to see specifically in the film, but also the atmosphere and tone that they were creating. So there are costumes in that are just exact replications of costumes that already existed in the sort of history and lineage of existing franchises in our worlds. Sleepaway Camp, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Halloween, kind of you name them, it's in there somewhere. So some of the costumes are as well. And so we went through and we're just like, okay, so Chuck is going to look like this, and then Will is gonna look like this, and DJ Ella is a reference to like these people from real life. So we knew where we were going. And then it is a matter of like finding out who's cast, meeting that person, what do they bring to it, what are they excited by, and just sort of curating to the individual so that it can like live on them as a second skin.
Right.
Yeah, but it's very creative, very challenging, but fun. And I'm really happy with how Miasma turned out. I do love it. Every time I see the stills of those sequences, I'm just like, that felt great.
Nailed it. And before this interview, I was going through some of the behind the scenes that you did with Ian Drummond collection, showing off some of the pieces. But I believe there was one worn by young Billy that I felt really taken by when I was watching the film, and it seemed to have a lot of significance to the story also and the characters.
Yeah, it's a sweater vest. The character of young Billy in the Miasma franchise, Jane wanted them to have like an innocence and a naivete that doesn't match up with these other teens who are just so thrilled to be in like an unsupervised environment, drugs, sex, rock and roll. It's going to be a good time and a ruckus. You're at camp, and there's such a different trepidatious energy to young Billy. And so originally we were going to do a reference to Halloween, and to Jamie Lee Curtis's character, and which is this like widely considered the original final girl, which is kind of where I was really connected to that.
She is in my book.
Yeah, for sure, right? So she's got this great all blue on blue costume that I was pushing to like, could we recreate this? And Jane was down. Jane was on board. So I was playing with the costume being a little bit more dated from the era, like a little bit more from the late 70s. I was playing with, anything that could make her look young. And in that search, and we rented from costume houses all across Canada. We rented from VPC in Vancouver, from Ian Drummond and Victory Girl here in Ontario, and then the Grand Costumier in Montreal. And that piece in particular, it did come from Ian Drummond, and it was just one of those moments. They're so organized and kind. They have their whole catalog available, so I can like digitally online shop, if you will, as the kind of the experience. And so I was going through everything from about 78 forward, literally every garment that they have cataloged. And I just stopped at this one and had a very instinctive, like, that is not the composition and silhouette that we're looking at. That is not the color palette that we're looking at. And I have a very powerful instinct to bring it and try it. And we did. And when we saw it, I put together a bunch of versions. Sometimes actors will see something in a fitting and be like, that's it, done. And others, we really just throw out lots so that we can find our way towards the character with the director's input. And this was a fitting where we tried tons of different versions of all the costumes. And when Jane saw that one, I remember them just being like, I know you really want this to be blue. I'm so sorry. And I was like, no, I'm there. I'm with you. I completely agree.
Laurie's out.
Bye, Laurie. This is really correct in a way that's hard to articulate, and it's just so exciting. Sometimes things come to you and you're just like, yep, that's the way it should be. So when it feels right, it's a great feeling. And I'm so glad Jane agreed, because I had already been like, ooh, I think I'm tearing down my entire composite, because I was trying to consider all of our leads in Miasma in a single like strip of like, what did they look all standing together, because they are largely all together in all their scenes, and trying to make sure. So I was like, okay, so that color is gone, and we're just gonna switch that real quick here. But I mean, that's the thing where you're considering the individual, but you do want to consider the whole when you have all these ensemble scenes. So I'm just really thankful. We're so lucky. I mean, in film in general, but I do really feel in Canada we have just amazing resources. And when I had gone out to Ian, I literally was just like, so this is the concept and this is the film, and Gillian's really thinking Biba, and he was just like, oh, say less, I'll begin putting stuff together. The resource of the knowledge of the folks who work here is just boundless. We're really, really lucky, and it does feel like a wonderful collaboration.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could imagine you being like, I got just what you need. I also did want to shout out Ian Drummond, because he was one of the people that collaborated with you that was very much like, you have to talk to Kendra about this film because it's a
That
lot
was
of
so
fun.
sweet. Yeah. In my mind, when I was doing this, I was just like, oh man, it would be so great if we get to kind of start having conversations. I hope I get a chance to talk to Spencer. I should reach out. And I hadn't said anything, and Ian had already emailed, and I was like, oh, wonderful.
Yeah,
Kismet.
so nice. So let's talk about Little Death, because I know Little Death is gonna become everyone's new favorite slasher in the lineage of slashers, like you mentioned, Jason and Freddy. Little Death is up there now. So what was it like helping create your own 80s slasher villain? I mean, that's kind of like
So
the dream,
cool.
isn't it?
A little bit, like, it's having, yeah. It's the coolest thing. I'm so lucky. I mean, slight sidebar, but coming up to Canada, Jane knew they would have to be interviewing new costume designers, and there was a bit of an intimidation factor for me because most of the other collaborators are folks that Jane had been working for years and years and years on most, if not all, of their other work. And I was like, I so desperately just want to click in. I want to make sure that I'm meeting all of the expectations and needs of the DP. I want to make sure that my world is perfectly connected to the universe that the production designers are creating. They're all so creatively synced. And I'm just so lucky and thankful on how welcoming that collaboration was, because it really did feel like I was just absolutely come on in and let's all work together. And that very much extends to Jack Haven, who plays Little Death, who is the lead in Jane's last film, I Saw the TV Glow, and is the kindest person I think you could ever meet. No shade to everyone else in the rest of the world, but we're all living up to Jack's standard.
Right.
And it was so fun. So to get into detail, the mask is very explicitly described in the script. The neck down is not. We obviously knew they're holding a spear, and the action is really clear, which definitely informed elements of this. But then when it came to it, I mean, the opening conversation was like, okay, Jade, what is this in your mind? Because we have, do we begin from the maybe reality of what happened to Little Death, but the stories told around a campfire clearly have an energy of being completely untrue or heavily exaggerated or manipulated for effect, which is how we learn about Little Death's backstory, as is very true in a lot of these stories in slasher franchises. So is it that, do I start from a camper perspective? And I had images to jump off the conversation. So I had versions of almost very antiquated Boy Scouts, Eagle Scouts, back when camps sometimes had a uniform.
Yeah.
It's giving a very different take on Moonrise Kingdom boys. But
but yeah.
Right. But do we start there? Do we begin with just era correct kids clothes, and how long have we been telling this story? So it's a lot of conversations and sort of discussing the universe in Jane's mind. And I also had a lot because, of course, Little Death, I guess sort of spoiler alert, lives in a hole at the bottom of the lake and must come up through the water. So I was like, these costumes tend to be, by that I mean Jason, Freddy, all of these characters. There is often a uniform element to them, and they're very worn, very broken down. So I also had a lot of inspiration pictures of the mechanics of making things look rusted because under the water. So that was a piece of it too. And we didn't rush it. We really took our time in conversation with all of the creative department heads together to work through what this would be and how it would relate to the mask, because I want it to be cohesive. And then one day Jane kind of said, what if the costume is like it is the plastic that Laura Palmer had washed up on the beach in the first episode of Twin Peaks, and I was just
now you're
like,
talking my language, Kendra.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, what do you mean? Yes, immediately. I remember being just like, yeah, yes. What?
I literally
of
have
course.
Laura Palmer like right here somewhere.
And I was like very powerful, strong. Yes to that. And I was like, clothing can actually be literally made of plastic, and began to source. I have a bit of experience with it because I did do a costume on the reboot of the TV series Kids in the Hall, one of which is in Camp Miasma. Kevin McDonald's does, I'm going to say, not bigger than a cameo, does a role in multiple roles in, I think, 4 separate roles in Camp Miasma. And I did do something there where I made a really special costume that is very beloved to me, out of latex, which is a really specific specialty build. And I kind of was like, okay, I've actually done something similar before, in terms of the fabric. And we started just, again, like showing reference images and sort of circling this idea, and it just kind of grew because it's like it's obviously, and this is very much in Camp Miasma as well, it's also the shower curtain from Psycho, which is incredibly important backdrop for Kris, and we do in fact swim past underneath the water, and the costume is utilitarian, and there's an anonymity to it that I was really focused on, that ungendered, if you will, Little Death, which is very, very, very important to the Little Death story, as opposed to their other significant costume, which was also a custom build, where they are both genders at once. So that conversation about identity and its relationship to slasher franchises is really centered in the film quite a bit. So that was really important, playing with opacity to make sure that there was an element of sort of anonymous nudity under it that is clear, like what is Jack wearing? How much are we seeing? What is in silhouette? Lot of trial and error there. So
yeah.
And then like on another level, like it's not a condom. And the whole thing's about sex, and it's called Little Death. Like, it sort of started to just become its own thing, where I was just like, I also did meta levels here, definitely on purpose, and it didn't just happen by, like, beautiful kismet of the costume. But, we had it conceptualized. We did use a brilliant illustration artist, Keith Lau, out of Vancouver, and obviously very early stages showed it to Jack, so they were in conversation. So they knew every step of the way what we were working on, what we were playing with, and then began a very difficult journey to find the right fabrics to use and then how to construct them. But yeah, it's like so cool. The day that Jack got there and put it on, and I got to see them move in it, was just like a wild experience, and really, really fun and joyful. And again, to have this just like lovely, sweet, warm person whose like lovely little eyes are just like right there in this just horrific costume. I think we had it does a lot. It goes underwater, and like that's not like, that's people walking underwater. Some Jack's on the stunt double, but and then, in the centerpiece of the entire film, what I think is commonly being called the Counting Crows sequence now, so much blood happened that we had to get in the next day, and as like a collective costume department, all kind of be like, it needs a drainage system to it was full of blood.
Wow.
In like layers of the costume, and we had to like reconfigure how it would technically drain out, which I guess I should have thought of, but I'd never. The hems are sealed. I didn't even understand fully how it got in there, and so we had to then redo again. Think like, how does it actually drain out so we're not adding weight and like sloshing blood around inside the costume.
I didn't even think of that.
it was like a journey. We like kind of never didn't stop working on Little Death live in real time as it went, because there's multiple versions of it at different stages of destruction. We have like a very, very shiny new one that's actually in like it's a costume within the film.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Before we move on, I was really excited to. There's that moment toward the end where I think the light just hits Lil Def just in the right way, and you kind of get like that opacity moment where you kind of just see like the silhouette underneath, and it's very subtle, but I just thought that was a very beautiful use of lighting and the costume. It just kind of brought the whole thing together as they were walking away into the water. I thought it was really exciting. So I'm glad that was all intentional because you all nailed it.
thank you. It was
Speaking
also
of,
incredible to see actually happen when I got to watch it for the first time. I was just like, oh yeah, that I'm
yeah,
like so thrilled it came together so beautifully.
a big sigh of relief, I'm sure. You talked about the blood. There's lots and lots of blood. And that really was true when we kind of get this fun, superb final girl moment at the end. Your own final girl moment. So with Kris running in her underwear from Little Death, that was an exciting scene. But I think while on the outset, I think viewers are going to think, oh, she's just in her underwear and a crop shirt. Not much costume here. But I actually feel like that was probably a very complicated costume for you all to come together on
Oh, yeah.
because there was a lot of storytelling in that moment. So I was hoping you could tell us a little bit of your thought behind this.
Yes. Okay, so Kris's final girl. Yes, it's incredibly technical. All costuming, you just never know what's going on in the multiple of layers and the thought going into it. And something that might look like sometimes we often in costumes will joke that like there's something that we're like, oh, that's going to be great. We'll probably have lots of options for that. And that will end up being the thing that was so hard to find and do. And it shouldn't have been. It had no business being that hard. But you'd be amazed. I think the challenge is to surprise us because every single person and garment is so individual as we create it. But yeah, it was really, really technical and very thought after and very carefully planned. So obviously at its baseline, Kris describes her fantasy to Billy in the fireplace scene.
Yeah.
When they're first accomplishing some intimacy together, albeit a bit like unsuccessful in that particular scene. So I knew what it needed to be. I knew how it needed to function. I knew what it needed to do in the scene. And then that is I believe Friday the 13th reference that Jane was like, it's this girl. And there was like a still that I have of an interpretation of the costume. And we are doing kind of a reference there. We did a lot of versions of it. We did different colors, different compositions. And then I wanted to, as much as possible, try to create a costume that actually looked like it's from the early 80s because we have really different undergarments on women. In our contemporary setting, they're made of different fabrics, not universally, but frequently. And I really do think that they create a different silhouette. When I watch a film that is doing a historical era, depending on that era and how much budget a costumer had, they maybe aren't able to get era-correct undergarments for women, and it really can create silhouettes that end up looking contemporary, even though technically they're wearing era-correct clothes. And I probably got a little bit too obsessed with not doing that. And I went into it being like, okay, we're going to have to perfectly fuse like the aesthetic creative vision and the technicality because Hannah has to run through the woods for a long time, both in the plot and then very much on the shoot days. We absolutely were very much in the woods there. So it's like, okay, so what's she wearing on her feet for safety? First and foremost. Are they comfortable? Are they durable? Are they waterproof? Just because you never know. Could have been a dingy night. Is she warm enough? Or also is she too hot? Because that's the time of year we're shooting this, where it absolutely could have been either. The underwear are a custom builds. We actually consulted with the ballet locally in Vancouver about like how is this going to stay on and not move at all. I'm sure a lot of folks in the entire world have had the unfortunate experience of buying a cute pair of underwear or bathing suit, because it's a bit of a one-to-one on silhouette, and discovering it that just goes right up your butt as you walk around.
Yeah, exactly.
And, like, we can't have that. The intention is that Hannah does not have to think about her costume at all. Her mind will be very busy with an enormous amount of details and elements that she has to carry in her performance, and I don't want her worrying about this. So it's like, after sampling fabrics and, talking to Jane and talking to Hannah and deciding which one felt right, and then figuring out how to build them closer to a shapewear than an underwear, and making sure it's like lined on the interior with like silicone stripping so it's staying in place, and then we're fitting for shape and silhouette and making sure that it's as flattering as possible in exactly the way that makes Hannah happy when it, like, in her own self, all considerations there. And then of course building a bunch, because a lot happens in those costumes. And yes, blood-wise, a lot happens. So, and then on the top half, it's like, okay, well, it's a t-shirt. So, like, should we go from scratch? We actually went out looking for something we could buy in a very large volume of multis on the off chance we found something that felt right. And we did. We were really pleasantly surprised to just straight find it retail at a mall. Wasn't quite the right silhouette, wasn't quite the right length, wasn't quite the right color, if I remember correctly, but very close, all things that we can control. So then that's kind of where I referenced earlier. We'll take something that's very, very contemporary, and we will, in this case, a lot of t-shirts are being cut essentially boxier, and this falls into that category. Yeah. So we wanted to actually like slim it. The cropping was just literally to be like, what references this like costume that I'm doing a tribute to. So that's a really, like, that calculation was us being like, it's not there. And just trying versions of it on Hannah. And shape of sleeve, that's a big one too. Like, we're doing quite a boxy, what would have previously, to use a very binary gendered term, which not in any way relevant to our film, but does tend to govern a lot of how and where we buy our clothes still. There's a bit of like a masculine boxy cut to it. So we were reshaping a lot of elements. And then finally it was also specifically about her bra and what that looked like, and sort of avoiding a lot of essentially the technology that we have now. You'd think for somebody who was running in the woods, we would have gotten her an incredibly comfortable sports bra, except that's exactly what Kris doesn't want. She says that in her dialogue. So we wanted to go with something that was much more error correct, unlined, very simple, created a lot of shape, and in this case, a lot of movement. And just have a lot of all of that, because by the time it reaches its conclusion, these are drenched in blood. This film contains more blood than I've ever worked with personally. I've been super privileged to work on a lot of shows and movies with a lot of blood, and I love, love, love doing it. I love the storytelling. I think it's so fun and so artistic. This would be the most by a landslide.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how there could be more blood, honestly. I mean, that takes us to the end of the film, where we see this moment between Kris and Billy at the store, of course, getting candy as always, and they are just covered in blood. It's one of my favorite images of the entire film. I mean, what was it like working with all of this blood? I mean, it must have been a continuity nightmare.
Yes and no. But also, like, sometimes these things just end up kind of, I find something, if you don't plan for it can go, because it's going to be so straightforward. Murphy's Law is that it will go really poorly. And if you over plan for something that sounds like the hardest thing in the world, it'll just be like, oh, it was perfect. Nothing bad.
Yeah, they're covered in blood.
They're covered in blood. Let's go. It was, so I will say the two of them together in the blood drenchedness, from the moment they exit and they walk across the lawn at Camp Miasma holding hands, all the way into the corner store at the gas station. I love it so dearly. It's like one of my all-time favorite compositions. the combination of pink and red has like truly been my favorite color combination for my entire life. So to have something like this put up, and then the joy and shock of it being the poster, I was just like, I feel such pride, and it's so beautiful and tender. To see two people love each other that much and to see it realized so beautifully, I was just like, oh, it's great. And how did it go? I mean, there's a lot of versions of the costumes, both of them. There's a lot of clean versions. There are a bunch of versions that were sort of like, they're clean and they're for the day the blood actually happens live in real time. And then I guess the like secret trick of the trade is that, of course, and I don't think you can tell, but you're quite tight when the blood happens. We're really on Hannah's face in what is an extraordinary performance. It took my breath away, and like I was there, and I still, to see it happen was just like, damn. Like, I was really, really moved in that final moment where Little Death finds her, and about halfway through that, probably described, they're switched into costumes that I had made bloody based on a lot of thorough conversation about what that would look like in that moment.
Right.
Where is it coming from? How is it coming? How is she lying? Where is Gillian? Every step of this was realized. And again, there's a lot of versions of it. So we put that whole thing together, and Hannah's was a little bit more straightforward just because of how she was laying and what was going to happen, how we wanted it to look. Gillian's was more challenging, not only because the color kept altering the color of the blood, and I was trying to make it very clear this all happened together in one moment. I actually had to do a few versions, but I don't think I've said this to anybody yet. I did go a little light-handed, which is better. You can always add. You can't take away in the moment on the day. But there was a moment in the gas station, roughly 20 minutes before we shot it, where Jane was like, I don't think there's enough blood on Gillian. And I was like, okay, I'll be right back. And there is a adjacent parking lot spray bottled moment of additional blood that happened, which again, I'm glad we did it. I think it looks exactly it was a great instinct on Jane's part. I would say I used a mix of the actual blood that we used on the day, like the 4-camera special effects blood, so that the color would stay very, very, very consistent, and then dye that I had dyed to match that blood. It's kind of like it's a various different things to create that look. And then just really trial and error strategy until we kind of got what we were looking for. And because some of it was blood, and everyone was aware, but like, it's not comfortable. I'm sure Gillian and Hannah were sticky, but also like a little crunchy. It dries, and it's, like, I'm sure they were very uncomfortable, but like, they're such troopers. They were in such high spirits and such like positive spirits in the gas station day, which is kind of the longest amount of time that they were in those like fully blooded costumes. And I felt across the board, every single actor was like so brave in just how hard they went, and that's definitely true for the costumes. So it's a really like fun piece of like, feels really art-based to play around with blood in costuming. And again, I kind of referenced this earlier with you, but like, by total coincidence, my parents had moved to the area where we shot this on Vancouver Island in Duncan. So we were kind of not exclusively, but largely in the surrounding area outside of Duncan, like 4 months before this happened. This is just like very, very weird coincidence in my life.
Wow.
So an enormous amount of these costumes were bloodied by me in their backyard, which gets full sun, so it dries really quickly. Like, I was trying to just be like, let's try it and see how it dries, and like see what it happens to the color. So they like would wake up, and I would like have come home from a overnight deep, dark, wooded, scary like horror night shoot day, and I had like come home to the sun coming up, and I'm just like sitting cross-legged in their backyard, like kind of like just like dipping blood over this costume. And I kind of was like, do you know your neighbors, just in case you get any calls? This looks really disturbing, and just like making sure my whites aren't too hot, tea dipping on like laundry lines of like vintage socks. They were so kind and so game and so like delighted. And I can't wait. It's not quite out in Canada. We have one more week to go. But they're so excited to like see where they're just like, just please don't accidentally stain the garage floor would be great. And
Yeah,
like,
it's new.
yeah, it was very like egg family. They're so fun, and I think it must have been. I talk about this stuff, but it's a whole other thing to see it happen. So yeah, I am totally in love with those last two costumes. I hope everybody else is too. And it really just feels like this like born of love endeavor to have done. Really, the whole thing did, you know.
Yeah, I love this vision of your parents kind of like sneaking around the corner and just seeing you playing with blood in the garage or outdoors, being like, I don't know what Kendra's up to these days. But
right, and I've always done my breakdown thing that I do to throw over my clothes. It is the like classic old school, like from Mark's Work Warehouse Carhartt navy blue jumpsuit. Like it's an old men's utility jumpsuit, which is Michael Myers' costume. So
yeah,
I'm like not sat in the backyard dressed as a horror icon, being like, I think at one point I needed a whole bunch of Little Death's gloves, which the hero glove is this amazing, beautiful vintage pair that we had that was like really patinaed and gorgeous. But because we have like water stunt doubles, we needed extras. So I had to just like paint more to match. So I'm like sitting in the backyard holding a glove, just being like, morning.
You needed the Michael Myers mask to just really get into the storyline too.
I should have just gotten like a cardboard box and been like my own Little Death, but we'll see. Yeah. I'm really, it's so delightful seeing a few people like go to some screenings kind of in like a version of Little Death. It's such a like, yeah, it's so joyful seeing people kind of start to like realize and interpret their own thing. Yeah.
Well, like I said, it's one of my favorite images at the end. It was obviously like a very horrific scene that led up to this beautiful corner store moment, but I don't know, I was like, this is cinema, this is art, this is beauty, seeing them covered in blood. So I really enjoyed it. With that, Kendra, I mean, I really love getting to talk to you about this film. You gave me a whole new appreciation, so I'm excited to go watch it again to see some of these things I might have missed. But with that, now that the film is now released in theaters, what do you hope audiences take away from their experience watching Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma?
I'm going to mirror something that Jane said in Cannes. This film opened in a certain regard, and I was really privileged to be there, and they spoke a lot about joy. And this is a joyful film. I think I leave with a huge smile on my face. I saw somebody comment recently somewhere on one of the social media posts about it that they were smiling the whole time. And I also find myself with like a huge grin on my face when I watch this movie. And I just want people to feel that joy, feel the joy of the entire very odd, like wonderful little experience and all of the ways that it can carry meaning for you as an individual. And I think it's there's a lot of heaviness in our world. So if you love sex, love movies, especially slasher horror movies, but I think movies, and like I have loved movies in every moment I've been alive. It was never not that for me, even as a kid. I think this movie will bring you a lot of joy, and I hope everybody enjoys it and finds it to just be the coziest romance you could imagine. I've already seen this a few times. I'm gonna go again when it's open here in Toronto, and I think that's the main thing. I hope people just feel joy.
Yeah, well, I can tell you I was feeling joy throughout the whole thing. So thank you so much, costume designer Kendra Terpenning, for being here. This was so much fun. Congratulations to you, everyone who worked on this film, and I really hope everyone goes and checks it out. It's now in theaters in the US, and like Kendra said, it'll be out in Canada very soon. Go see it. It is
Go
so
see
much
it.
fun, so beautiful. Thank you so much for being here, Kendra. This was so much fun.
Thank you so much for having me. This is such a joy. And thank you for having the pod in general. I just love and appreciate the spotlight on costumes.
Oh, that's very kind. I appreciate it. Well, thank you. And please come back next time you have another film or TV show.
Oh, I can't wait.
Or anything. Halloween costume, because I love talking to you.
I would love to. I will let you know.
I want to give a huge thank you to Ian Drummond of Ian Drummond Collection for helping inspire this episode. I'm a huge fan of the vintage clothing coming from Ian Drummond Collection, and I really hope everyone goes and checks them out. You'll find their information linked in the show notes or on Instagram at Ian Drummond Collection. Thank you to costume designer Kendra Terpenning for joining me. Please go see Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma in theaters now. The Costume House with Spencer Williams is a production of The Art of Costume. This episode was hosted, produced, and edited by Spencer Williams. To discover more conversations with the designers shaping film, television, and theater, visit theartofcostume.com or follow us on social media at The Art of Costume. And don't forget to connect with me on Instagram at HostSpencer. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts or watch on YouTube. And stay tuned for more episodes celebrating the designers shaping today's most captivating films, television series, and stage